achieved.
Grab your best suit out of the closet, find your nicest dress, and get ready to take a lovely walk down the red carpet. The second annual Kamikaze Overdrive Award Show is back, and more specifically the 2015 award show, as we look back at the past year in the UFC, and I hand out various awards that have absolutely no meaning. The award criteria put together by myself, the nominees established by myself, and the winner selected, you guessed it, by myself. I will also give my prognostications on each division, who I think will challenge for the title and who will walk out of 2016 with the champion. I'll recap what I came up with last year, see how wrong I was in each one of those scenarios. And just generally speaking, it's a fun way to look back, and hopefully, I think I had 250 viewers for this show, listeners, I guess, for this show last year. I'm aiming to break 300 this year, so hopefully tune in and you'll see what it's all about. It's been a fun year. Overall, as far as predictions were concerned, I didn't have as great a year. I got to a rough start and finished very strong. For 2015, I went 259 wins, 176 losses, just over 60%, so definitely not my best year. The year previous, I had 299 wins. For 2016, I am shooting to break the 300-win plateau. That's going to be incredibly difficult. I'm setting the bar high, but we're going to come out blazing on January 2nd for UFC 195 and see what we can put away. As I said, fun show. Let's get to my first award winner. Our first award, an award I like to hand out because I am from Canada, it's the Canadian of the Year award in the UFC. And my last year's winner, of course, was Rory MacDonald, not surprisingly, one of the highest profile fighters with George St. Pierre now out of commission. We will talk about George later in the show. I have 5 nominees, the first being Elias Theodorou, who went 1-1 in 2015. Patrick Cote finished 2-0. In this UFC year in 2015. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Ultimate Fighter runner-up, went 2-0 as well. Valeri Letourneau went 2-1, and Kajan Johnson went 2-0. So my runner-up for this illustrious Canadian of the Year award, looking to join, fell just short of winning the award. My runner-up is Patrick Cote. He kind of revitalized his career a little bit. He went 2-0 and had a barn burner of a matchup against Josh Burkman that he eventually won. My winner of the year is actually a female. Valeri Letourneau is my Canadian UFC Fighter of the Year. She went 2-1, changing divisions, dropping 2 divisions, picking up 2 solid victories en route to a very competitive showing in a 5-round loss to a very dominant champion in Jedrzejczyk. 2-1. I felt she represented Canada very well, represented herself very well. So my winner of Canadian of the Year award goes to Valeri Trouble Letourneau. Congratulations, Valeri. I'm sure you're not listening. Now, we were just discussing Valeri Letourneau, former title challenger. Now we're going to talk about the strawweight division. The current champion, of course, Jedrzejczyk, winning the title in 2015 and defending it twice. So she'll carry it over into 2016. Current contenders, obviously Claudia Gadelha, who appears to be the next one in line to fight for the title. Rose Namajunas, who's already fought for the title once against a different champion, certainly put herself in contention. Tisha Torres, Michelle Watterson, and the dark horse I have, the wild card I have, I think Justine Kish, if she can get her issues together, her crap together as far as making weight is concerned, and get active, she's a threat. I think she could really come out of nowhere. It probably wouldn't be later in the year, but I think she could make a run at it as well. I could be wrong altogether. Nonetheless, we're going to talk about actually a quick look back. I was completely off base. I predicted that at the end of 2015, Carla Esparza would not be holding the title, but I actually had Jessica Aguilera wearing the title. Unfortunately, she lost to Claudia Gadelha. She's kind of out of contention right now. She could creep back into it. But by the end of 2016, I think Jedrzejczyk is still going to have the title around her waist. I think she fights Claudia. I don't think Claudia can beat her over 5 rounds just because I think she'll gas out before she gets there. And again, my prediction when I watch footage might change entirely. And I know they already fought once, but I think Joanna will hold on to the title. I think she'll fight potentially 3 times this year as well. And I think after Claudia, I think favorably the matchups favor Joanna Jedrzejczyk that much more. So I think at the end of 2016, Joanna Jedrzejczyk will still be your UFC strawweight champion. Our next award is the Future Star of the Year, and this is an individual who potentially was already fighting in the UFC and possibly made their debut in 2015, but they're relatively new to the UFC, relatively new in their MMA careers, and with their success in this year, they have finally put themselves on the map and are certainly climbing the rankings. My 5 nominees are Ray Borg, who went 2-0 with 2 pretty solid wins. Johnny Case, who went 3-0 in 2015. Luis Smolka, who also went 2-0. Mirsad Bektic, who went 2-0. And Rose Namajunas, who went 2-0, wrapping up the year with a pretty impressive winner, Paige Van Zandt. Last year's winner for this award was, I have it written down here. And Future Star, I had Max Holloway as my Future Star, and certainly you see where he's at. So obviously, if you win this award, you're definitely destined for greatness. My runner-up is Mirsad Bektic. I thought he looked impressive. He has a lot of hype around him, and his stoppage of Lucas Martins was darn certainly noteworthy. But my Future Star of the Year award goes to none other than Rose Namajunas. She picked up, as I said, 2-0. Her victory over Angela Hill was damn impressive, but her dominance of Paige Van Zandt, an upset I predicted, was so awesome. And I know she's already fought the title once, so it's kind of a little bit of gray, little wishy-washy there, but I think she's going to be a big star in the promotion. Even if she doesn't get the title, I think she's the type of person who's really starting to gain some traction, and people will really start to follow her. So congratulations, my Future Star of the Year award winner from 2015, Rose Namajunas. So 2 awards and 2 women's strawweight winners. Very interesting. We're moving next now to the future of the women's bantamweight division, and the current champion, we haven't said this in a while, it's not Ronda Rousey, it is Holly Holm. Very interesting. We'll see how 2016 plays out. Current contenders in the division, obviously, Ronda Rousey appears to be the one next in line to fight for the title. Then you have Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena, and then 2 previous challengers in Miesha Tate and Kat Zingano, all girls that are probably going to have their fingers in there and the opportunity to look for a title opportunity. I unfortunately think Holly Holm's only going to fight twice in 2016, mainly because she's being forced to wait for Ronda so long if she does retain the title. So I think she'll face Ronda, and then will most likely face any one of those 4 girls. Could be Miesha Tate for the high profile, could be the winner, it could be Nunes or Pena. Obviously Juliana Pena in a little bit of legal trouble right now, but nonetheless. So as far as 2016, the end of 2016 is concerned, I have Holly Holm still holding the women's bantamweight title. I think she defeats Ronda Rousey in her next matchup, and then I think she'll probably, if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick an opponent, I think she would probably up next face Miesha Tate, and I think she'd take out Miesha Tate as well. So my prediction for the women's bantamweight division is that Holly Holm will remain the champion through 2016. Up next, we have our Submission of the Year award, or as the Ouch Ouch Snore award, as I sometimes like to refer to it. Last year's winner was Charles Oliveira submitting Hatsuyuki. I think it was a modified Anaconda, I believe, an impressive victory. Our 5 nominees are Benson Henderson winning via rear naked choke over Brandon Thatch at UFC Fight Night 60. Ronda Rousey tapping out Kat Zingano via armbar at UFC 184. Alexis Davis submitting Sarah Kaufman at UFC 186, also via armbar. Fabricio Verdum tapping out Cain Velasquez at UFC 188 to win the title with a guillotine. And finally, kind of an interesting fight that came out of nowhere. Mathis Nicola defeating Bruno Rodriguez, I think Bruno Correa actually is what he goes by, at UFC Fight Night 77 on the prelims, winning the fight by rarely seen Japanese necktie. Pretty fun submission. My runner-up for the award is Ronda Rousey defeating Kat Zingano. It was a very impressive submission nonetheless. Not quite good enough to get it done. My winner is Fabricio Verdum tapping out Cain Velasquez at UFC 188, and there's a number of reasons this wins. First and foremost, the guy had a smile on his face while he was doing it. That was so impressive. He caught a dangerous opponent. He destroyed Cain Velasquez on the feet, forced him to shoot, and trapped him the same way he trapped Fedor Emelianenko. And obviously the significance of that fight, winning the UFC's heavyweight title from a champion a lot of people thought was going to absolutely smash through him. I think it was a fantastic submission, set up and executed to perfection by the new heavyweight champion. So congratulations, Fabricio Verdum, one of the most talented grapplers in the world. You are the 2015 Submission of the Year award winner. We move now to the flyweight division for the men's. Last year I predicted correctly that Demetrius Johnson would leave 2015 still with the title wrapped around his waist. He is the champion coming into this 2016 contenders. Henry Cejudo appears to be in line to fight for the title next. Joseph Benavidez still flying around. They're still 0-2, so it's difficult to sell him as the next contender. Also, Kayuji Horiguchi, who had a pretty competitive fight, has improved greatly. He could get his name back in there. And a dark horse is Ray Borg. I also think there's a possibility Demetrius Johnson could opt to move up to 135 pounds to contend for the title there. But I don't know. I don't think Henry Cejudo, unless he makes massive strides, and I think it comes down to the cardio and ability to maintain a pace over 5 rounds. That's one of his weaknesses. That's one of the champion's greatest strengths. And as a result, I think I have, at the end of 2016, Demetrius Johnson retaining the title. I think he beats Henry Cejudo. I think we'll see Ray Borg possibly get rushed into a title shot opportunity because he has been, he's been pretty damn impressive in his fights, despite he's young. And then after that, I'm not sure where we go from there. We could start seeing some fighters push back through. We could see someone else rise to the ranks like a Gene Herrera, who we just saw. Nonetheless, at the end of 2016, I have Demetrius Johnson still holding the UFC flyweight title unless he vacates it. Next to the podium is the UFC's Knockout of the Year award winner. Last year, the 2014 Knockout of the Year award winner was Mark Hunt for his devastating walkaway knockout of Roy Nelson. We have 5 very worthy candidates this year. Paul Felder is the first nominee for his spinning back fist knockout at UFC 182 of Danny Castillo. Up next is Uriah Hall's turning sidekick. It was an impressive kick, upset knockout of Gegard Mousasi at UFC Fight Night 75. Then we have Sean Jordan's hook kick knockout of Lewis at UFC Fight Night 68. Number 4, Sam Alvey taking out Cesar Ferreira at UFC Fight Night 61, just a one-punch knockout after basically he did nothing all fight. And finally, this should come as no surprise, the 5th nominee is Conor McGregor's 13-second straight left KO of former featherweight champion Jose Aldo at UFC 194. The runner-up for the award, for the Knockout of the Year award winner, is Uriah Hall taking out Gegard Mousasi. He won runner-up simply because he got dominated in the first round. He was a heavy underdog. The fight was playing out as much as I expected it to and as much as most people expected it to. And Hall came out and knocked out a guy not known for being, who has an iron chin. Very impressive, whether it was a fluke or not. Darn impressive. But the winner, and this should come as a surprise to no one, Conor McGregor's 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo to capture the featherweight title at UFC 194. It was just the impressive nature of which he scored the knockout, the fact that he won the title, the fact that he beat a guy who hadn't beaten 10 years. It was just everything. He backed up his talk. Everything makes it a massive, massive award, or award-deserving performance. So congratulations, Conor McGregor. Conor actually is here tonight. No, he's not. He couldn't make it. My apologies, folks. But nonetheless, I'll accept the award on his behalf. Conor McGregor, my 2015 Knockout of the Year award winner. Up next, we're looking at the future of the bantamweight division. The current champion, TJ Dillashaw. And now last year, I projected that Dominic Cruz would walk out of 2015 with the title firmly wrapped around his waist. Unfortunately, that did not transpire. He only fought once, and then injury set him back again. But that fight, barring injury, that's me knocking on wood, barring injury, is set to happen in early 2016. And of course, so that makes Dominic Cruz the number 1 contender heading into the year. We also have Rafael dos Assunção. Could he possibly get himself back in line? He fought well before the injuries. Uriah Faber always in contention. Certainly there's storylines with both Cruz and Dillashaw. And the current free agent, Aljamain Sterling, is another guy, a dark horse, who I feel, if he were to take on and beat somebody like Faber, and that would be a great fight for him if he elects to stay with the UFC. I don't know if that'll happen or not. Nonetheless, pretty good contenders. But at the end of 2016, I'm going to make the same prediction I made last year. I have Dominic Cruz walking out of 2016 with the title. I think he beats TJ Dillashaw and retains the title that he never lost. And then I would guess most likely up next, Cruz Faber 3. It would be a fight they'd let us have. And then I don't know where we go from there. But I've got Dominic Cruz leaving 2016 with the UFC bantamweight title firmly wrapped around his waist. Our next divisional prognostication is the UFC 145-pounders, the featherweight division. The champion is Conor McGregor. And if you took a second to go back and listen to my prognostication from last year, I said at the end of 2015, Conor McGregor would be your UFC featherweight champion. And I was right. I actually was right about a title changing hands almost a year in advance. Complete bullshit luck, we'll call it that. Nonetheless, he comes into 2016 as the champion, and it's up in the air as to what's going to go on. Current contenders, obviously, Jose Aldo is still very much a valid contender. Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas is sticking around there, and Max Holloway's put himself in the conversation. So a lot of good fights. Interestingly enough, though, Conor's already fought Aldo, already fought Mendes, and already fought Holloway. So it's 3 of the 5 guys he's already fought and defeated. Interesting, does he stay at featherweight? All indications are he's going to fight in both featherweight and go up to the lightweight division. For that reason, I think we only see him defend this title one time in 2016, and most likely I would think it would be against Frankie Edgar, unless he gets it done early and is able to fight again against Jose Aldo if he retains the title. And I'm gonna go out on a limb, maybe not a limb, and I'm gonna say at the end of 2016, the champion of the featherweight division in the UFC will still be the notorious Conor McGregor. I think he comes away with the title. He picks up another impressive win and continues to prove doubters wrong. So Conor McGregor is the end of 2016 featherweight champion, based on what I said, which means nothing. Moving right along, our next award comes to us with a little bit of connection to the betting aspect of what I do. It is the Upset of the Year award. Last year's award winner was TJ Dillashaw winning the UFC bantamweight title from Renan Barão in an upset. At his close, he was about $8.65, paid at $8.65 on your dollar, which are astronomically high odds. Now, obviously, these award winners have a lot to do with how big an underdog they were as far as the price tag their line was set, but not always. My 5 nominees are Andrei Arlovski upsetting Travis Browne at UFC 187. Arlovski closed at $5.15. Number 2, UFC 193's Holly Holm defeating Ronda Rousey to capture the women's bantamweight title. Holly Holm closed $8, but she was double digits at one point. Number 3, Rafael dos Anjos winning the lightweight title at UFC 185 over Anthony Pettis. Dos Anjos closed at about $5 even. Number 4, also UFC 185, Jedrzejczyk defeating Carlos Barza. Definitely at $2.25. She wasn't the biggest underdog we've seen, but certainly was an impressive effort, and the manner in which she dominated the former champion was truly impressive. And number 5 at UFC 184, which we just saw, Luke Rockhold defeating Chris Weidman. Rockhold paid $2.31. Again, the magnitude and the significance of the win playing a role there. Now, my runner-up, Rafael dos Anjos at $5 even, defeating Anthony Pettis. It was impressive when a lot of people were talking about Pettis as being one of the top fighters in the world, if not the pound-for-pound, one of the pound-for-pound most talented fighters on the planet, and dos Anjos wrecked him. And it's not like he came in as a former champion from another organization. He worked his way up and earned this opportunity, and he absolutely wrecked Anthony Pettis, so he is my runner-up. Much like the last award, though, this one is not hard to determine who I have as the champ, as the award winner. The Upset of the Year award goes to none other than Holly Holm, paying $8. Eight on your dollar. Very impressive win, and she defeated Ronda Rousey in impressive, dominating fashion. Now is being treated like, I don't know, being forced to wait for Ronda Rousey to return to action. Nonetheless, UFC 193's Holly Holm is the Upset of the Year award winner. Congratulations, Holly. The next divisional prognostication I have for you is for the 155-pounders, the lightweight division. The current champion, the man we just saw defend his title against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Rafael dos Anjos, also runner-up for Upset of 2015. He comes into the year as the champion with a strong base coming off that victory. 2016 contenders include the fast-rising Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, former Bellator champion, the surprisingly still in contention Nate Diaz, the off-injured Khabib Nurmagomedov, former champion Anthony Pettis, and the notorious one Conor McGregor, who obviously is potentially in line next. Now, as far as the lightweight title picture is concerned, I can see Dos Anjos fighting a couple of times. That Conor McGregor matchup certainly is a big money matchup, and I think that's the only fight they let Conor McGregor take at lightweight if he opts to go up, because if he loses to Dos Anjos, well, he lost to the champion of the other division. That really doesn't diminish the featherweight division that much, but I could see that fight happening next. I could also see the powers that be stepping in saying, no, Frankie Connor. I don't know. It's interesting. Dana White and company often switch gears back and forth. So I think we could see Rafael dos Anjos fight twice, maybe 3 times in 2016, and I've been very impressed with him in both his efforts to fight, despite picking against him in both matchups. And at the end of 2016, I'm not going to go on a big limb here. I have the Brazilian Rafael dos Anjos still holding onto the lightweight title, defending potentially against Conor McGregor, and then possibly having to deal with Tony Ferguson, maybe Eddie Alvarez, Khabib Nurmagomedov if he gets healthy. But at the end of 2016, I have Rafael dos Anjos still the champion. Unfortunately, at the end of last year, I predicted that Pettis would still be the champion coming out of 2015, and we see how well that worked out for him. So there we go. Comeback Fighter of the Year is what we have up next. 2015's Comeback Fighter of the Year. This goes to a fighter who, for one reason or another, was down and out, was struggling coming into the year, and turned things around significantly. Our first nominee, Lorenz Larkin, dropped to welterweight, went 2-0 with 2 darn impressive performances, and he's gone from basically a guy at middleweight who was lost and struggling to a contender. My second nominee is Evan Dunham, who went 3-0 in 2015. He looked like his career was certainly coming to an end. He had a lot of promise when he was first starting out, hit a skid and really never recovered. He went 3-0 in 2015, defeating Rodrigo Dam, Ross Pearson, and most recently Joe Lozon, and really turned some heads doing it. My third comeback fighter of the year, none other than Frank Mir. He did lose his last matchup against Andrei Arlovsky, but he picked up 2 darn impressive wins nonetheless prior to that. My number 4 Comeback Fighter of the Year nominee is Damian Maia, who went 3-0, defeating Ryan LaFleur, Neil Magny, and Gunnar Nelson. 3 impressive, young, rising, hungry fighters. In 2014, he went 1-on-1 with his lone win over Alexander Yakovlev. It was very uninspiring, and that's why Damian Maia is certainly a valid candidate here. And my number 5 nominee is Tim Means. He went 3-1. He lost a very eventful back-and-forth matchup with top-ranked Matt Brown. And then he defeated and finished Diego Lima, George Sullivan, and John Howard in impressive fashion, doing it at welterweight, moving up. Now, Tim Means narrowly missed out on getting my runner-up. He's very close. My runner-up is Evan Dunham because of how good he looked this year against escalating competition. But my winner of Comeback Fighter of the Year is Damian Maia. He's 3-0. He beat 3 very competent, very good young fighters. It looked like at his age he was done. He was at the top of the mountain in the middleweight division and fell short. He had some success at welterweight and was starting to peter off a little bit after the Rory MacDonald fight. He really put himself back on the map, so Damian Maia is my 2015 Comeback Fighter of the Year. Looking now at the future of the welterweight division, the current champion is the ruthless one, Robbie Lawler. Now, looking back at the end of last year, I prognosticated that Robbie Lawler would leave this year as the champion still, and that's exactly what he did. And I did ultimately pick Rory MacDonald to defeat him in my prediction. but I felt at the time I looked at Robbie Lawler had a great chance to remain champion throughout the year, and he ended up doing it, so it's kind of one of those picks. Again, I change things all the time when I look at tape and see how fighters have fought, more recently. 2016 contenders, and there is an absolute boatload of them. Matt Brown. The man that Robbie Lawler is fighting next, Carlos Condit. Former champion Johnny Hendricks. Former lightweight champion Benson Henderson is creeping his name into the conversation. Probably needs a few more wins. Lorenz Larkin, another dark horse. Hector Lombard could work his way into the title conversation. Rory MacDonald probably needs a couple wins. Might not 2017. The aforementioned Damian Maia. Tyrone Woodley is also there. And so is Stephen Thompson, who's looking to really put his name on the map with the win over Johnny Hendricks. And here's the long and short. I did this last year too. I'm not going to give you a prediction for this because I don't want to compromise so closely my predictions. I'll be getting, after the show's over, you're preparing to predict Lawler versus Condit. I really haven't decided either way, so I'm not going to give you a prediction for the welterweight champion for next year. So there you have it. Sorry, guys. We now move to breakout fighter of the year, and a lot of people like to get this confused with the future star of the year, the breakout fighter of the year, or the comeback fighter. But the breakout fighter is a fighter we knew was good, was having success in the UFC. But 2015 was a year they took themselves from being just a regular old guy in the roster to someone who suddenly people are paying attention to. They might not be in line to fight for a title, but they're certainly building momentum. And last year's breakout fighter of the year was none other than TJ Dillashaw, who actually went on to win the title in 2015, so he kind of went from obscurity to champion. These fighters didn't quite make that step. Well, not all of them. Nonetheless, breakout fighters of the year. My first nominee, Beneil Dariush, went 3-0, 3 pretty solid wins, including the win over Michael Johnson was a little bit questionable. Nonetheless, 3-0, a very good year with 3 very good wins. Aljamain Sterling, breakout fighter of the year, number 2. He went 2-0. 2 excellent wins to Kei Mizugaki and Johnny Eduardo, and now he's a free agent. Certainly a lot of power in his court. Number 3, Neil Magny, who went 4-1. He fought 5 times. He went 4-1, lost to Damian Maia, who we just talked about, and then defeated 4 opponents, finishing with a big upset over Kelvin Gastelum, which I predicted, and he also defeated Eric Silva in a bit of an upset as well there. So a good year for Neil Magny again. Number 4, Albert Tumanoff. He only went 2-0, but the guy is certainly someone we're talking about, especially in the manner in which he dispatched Alan Jouban. So Albert Tumanoff, a guy to watch in the future. And my 5th breakout fighter of the year, Holly Holm. She went 3-0, and the way she did it was very impressive. Raquel Pennington, Marion Renault, and Ronda Rousey to win the title. So she's my 5th nominee. My runner-up for the year, Neil Magny. Neil Magny definitely impressed me this year, 4-1. Even with that loss, he shook off getting submitted by Damian Maia to pick up, to continue to pick up victories, and I was very impressed. He was actually comeback of the year award nominee last year, runner-up actually. So this year he's breakout fighter of the year. I expect big things from him. He's moved himself into the top rankings. But my breakout fighter of the year shouldn't come much as a surprise, Holly Holm. We knew she was good. We knew she was talented. She came into the UFC and just edged out Raquel Pennington via split decision. A lot of people kind of rolled their eyes that here's another contender. There's another quote-unquote name for Ronda Rousey to, steamroll over. And then she picked up a better win over Marion Renault. She didn't finish her, but she hurt her, and definitely was a pretty dominant victory. And then she destroyed the champion. That's the definition of a breakout. She went from people are aware of her, to suddenly look at this girl, she's destroying everybody, or destroying the champion, at least that's, darn impressive. So congratulations, my breakout fighter of the year, and also my upset of the year award winner, Holly Holm. Middleweight division prediction time. The current champion, the newly crowned Luke Rockhold, again, a prediction I picked. Never take an opportunity, not take an opportunity to blow my own horn. Toot my own horn, not blow, toot my own horn. Luke Rockhold, champion, I predicted he's the current champion in the division. Last year, I predicted Chris Weidman would hold on to the title, so that could be a bad thing for Luke Rockhold. 2016 contenders, Yoel Romero appears to be next in line to fight for the title. Chris Weidman couldn't get himself back into the conversation with a couple of good performances. Same with Jacare Souza. And also we have Vitor Belfort also on the horizon, I think is, whether he deserves it or not, is in the conversation. My opinion is Yoel Romero fights Luke Rockhold next, and then I think I see Rockhold winning that, just basically being able to hold on until Romero slows down and then dominating him then. And then I see them actually pairing Rockhold up with Vitor Belfort to give him an opportunity to avenge that loss. Potentially could go down in Brazil, nonetheless, I think. And at the end of 2016, I have Luke Rockhold fighting twice and coming away with the UFC's middleweight title still wrapped around his waist. Yeah. For all 7 of you who are still listening, we are starting to get into the meat and potatoes of the awards. We have the Future Contender of the Year award, and this is a fighter who was doing very well, but in 2015, their success has put them in position to challenge for the title at some point in 2016 in the not too distant future. My first, and last year's Future Contender of the Year award was Rory MacDonald, who was already lined up to fight for the title. Unfortunately, he did not win the title, so I don't know how that bodes for these 5 nominees. My first nominee is Tony Ferguson, went 3-0 in 2015, had a great year, and stopped Gleison Tebow, dominated Josh Thompson, and then stopped Edson Barbosa. Very impressive year. Number 2, Yoel Romero, 2-0, destroying Lyoto Machida, and then decisioning Jacare Souza in his next appearance. My number 3 Future Contender of the Year, Max Holloway, went 4-0, one of the most active fighters in the division, maybe Neil Magny and Donald Cerrone passing that, but Max Holloway 4-0, and, outside of the Charles Oliveira win, it was a pretty impressive run for Max Holloway. Number 4 nominee, Andrei Arlovski, 2-0, defeating Travis Brown and Frank Mir, has himself a fight with Stipe Miocic coming up that could lend him to being the number 1 contender with a win. Maybe number 2 behind Alistair Overeem. And my number 5 Future Contender of the Year nominee, Camus Almeida, went 3-0, and he picked up a trio of victories, Yves Jabouet and Brad Pickett, and then Anthony Burchak. A lot of people thought that was a big test, and he passed it with flying colors. Now, my runner-up for Future Contender of the Year is none other than Max Holloway. Max Holloway, of course, last year, what did he win? He won Future Star of the Year award, so that was pretty good. He's my runner-up for Future Contender of the Year. My winner for Future Contender of the Year is Tony Ferguson. He's taken himself from, Ultimate Fighter winner, lost that Michael Johnson fight, took a big step back, and now everybody's talking about Tony Ferguson having him fight for the title. That dominating performance against Edson Barbosa is so fun to watch, exciting, and just of all these guys, he's the one everybody's saying, I want to see him fight the champion next. I want to see him fight for the title, and that's why Tony Ferguson is my Future Contender of the Year award winner for 2015. Our prognostication is the UFC's light heavyweight division. The current champion, in quotations, Daniel Cormier is the current champion. And I didn't give, at the end of 2015 last year, or in 2014, I didn't give my prognostication for this division because Cormier and Jones were lined up to fight, I believe it was the 3rd of January, and I picked Cormier to win that. I had Cormier I picked him to win that fight. I felt he was actually going to finish 2015 as the champion, which he did in a roundabout way, so I don't really want to take a lot of credit for it, but I will because I'm credit whore, if you will. Nonetheless, contenders coming into 2016, obviously John Jones is a contender, and that fight is going to happen. Anthony Rumble Johnson could get himself back into the conversation. He's taking on Ryan Bader, who certainly, if he beats Johnson, he is easily the next in line as far. I think he should be fighting Cormier next before he even fights Johnson. Alexander Gustafsson, not far from the title conversation, and Glover Teixeira, also not too distant, a distant title challenger. But at the end of 2016, I have John Bones Jones returning to capture his light heavyweight title at some point. I think he beats Cormier in the next matchup, and that sets up a lot of interesting things. If Rumble Johnson beats Bader, then we get Jones versus Johnson, a fight we haven't seen before, and obviously they match up a little bit different than Johnson and Cormier does, so that's a fight that they can present at the light heavyweight division. If Bader gets by Johnson, then Bader fights for the title. Obviously, if Jones is still the champion after that's all sorted out, we could see Alexander Gustafsson, if he can get a couple wins under his belt and not fight champions and top-level guys, Gustafsson could get back that rematch opportunity everybody's been looking forward to. But nonetheless, at the end of, when the dust settles, the end of 2016, I have John Bones Jones still becoming the light heavyweight champion for a second time. We have 3 awards left, and this is Champion of the Year. And the way I look at this is you must have either been the champion to start the year or won it very early in the year, potentially defended it, and the key is you still have the title at the end of the conclusion of the year. My 5 nominees are Joanna Jedrzejczyk, 3-0, defeating Carla Esparza to capture the title, and then defeating Jessica Penney in dominating fashion, and Valeri Letourneau to retain her title. Demetrius Johnson, 2-0 in 2015, defeating John Dodson, and before that, Kayuchi Horiguchi. My number 3 champion of the year nominee, Robbie Lawler, fought just once in 2015, but what a war it was against Rory MacDonald. My number 4 champion of the year nominee, Daniel Cormier. He lost his initial title shot to John Jones, won the fight against Rumble Johnson to capture the title, and then defeated Alexander Gustafsson to defend his title once, so very impressive as well there. And my number 5 champion of the year award nominee, the man we just saw in action, Rafael dos Anjos, defeating Anthony Pettis to capture the title in 2015, and then a dominating performance over a very highly regarded lightweight in Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now my runner-up for the title is the man I just talked about, Rafael dos Anjos. Destroying and defeating Pettis was impressive by itself. The manner in which he obliterated Donald Cerrone equally is impressive, and he deserves a lot more respect than he is getting as the lightweight champion. It's going to come. I think he certainly is going to get that respect after that win. Nonetheless, he is my runner-up. my champion of the year. We go all the way back to the strawweight division as Joanna Jedrzejczyk is the third strawweight winner on the card on my show, joining Valeri Letourneau and Rose Namajunas as she defeated Carla Esparza in a fight that a lot of people didn't have her winning, obliterated a very tough and talented lady in Jessica Penne, and then picked up another victory for Valeri Letourneau on a night where upsets were in the mix. And nonetheless, my champion of the year goes to Joanna Jedrzejczyk. She is certainly making strides from a fighter from obscurity to well-known champion. Congratulations as well to Joanna. Now we move to the big boys, the heavyweight division. The current champion, Fabricio Werdum, won the title this year, unified the title this year in impressive fashion. 2016 contenders. Obviously, the man he's just been signed on to face in Cain Velasquez. Probably the next in line to fight for the title, Alistair Overeem, after his impressive victory. And then you've got a series of guys. You've got Andrei Arlovski fighting Stipe Miocic. The winner of that could very well get themselves a shot at the title. You've got Josh Barnett fighting and facing, hopefully, Ben Rothwell. The winner of that could get themselves... I don't know if the winner of that could get themselves a shot at the title, but what I could see happening is the winner of Barnett-Rothwell take on the winner of Arlovski-Miocic, and them slotting in behind Velasquez and Overeem, third in line for a shot at the gold. Also, two dark horses. John Jones, possibly going up to heavyweight to compete for the title. If he retains his light heavyweight title, he might then just say, okay, thanks for coming out. I want to fight with the big boys now. And the other guy that could go up, Alexander Gustafsson, a very big light heavyweight. He could pack some muscle on, and he could be a guy to watch in the light heavyweight or the heavyweight division. He's a guy we could be talking about as comeback fighter of the year next year if he opts to rebuild himself in the bigger division. Use that speed advantage he has along with a lot of length and see if he can maneuver that into a title opportunity. Now, my end of 2016 champion, I'm still a believer. I have Cain Velasquez coming, but he's been so good in rematches. We saw that against Junior Dos Santos. I think the layoff really affected him. Obviously, not fighting at altitude took away one of his greatest weapons, which is his pace. I think, and again, I might pick Werdum to upset or defeat Velasquez in the rematch when I actually sit down and rewatch things. But just off the top of my head and what I know, I think Cain Velasquez has a very good chance of walking through Werdum to recapture the heavyweight title again. And then the next series of guys, I think he can beat all of them. So my prediction for the end of 2016 is Cain Velasquez to leave with the heavyweight title. I had the same thing at the end of 2015. So Cain, sorry, you're shit out of luck. I think you're going to have the title. You're not, as a result. If that makes any sense. Good luck, Cain. And now we've got the big two awards left. And because I did this wrong, I don't have another fight division to talk about. So we're going to do back-to-back award handing out awards. The next award is the Fight of the Year award, and last year's Fight of the Year was Johnny Hendricks versus Robbie Lawler. Their first meeting, it was a fantastic matchup, so they won Fight of the Year award last year. My 5 nominees for 2015 are John Lineker and Francisco Rivera. The one-round war they went to they went to war in the war. Yes, Rivera, Lineker at UFC 191, awesome fight. Definitely check it out if you didn't see it. My number 2 Fight of the Year nominee, Andrei Arlovski versus Travis Brown. Again, it lasted, I believe, just a round, with Arlovski winning by knockout at UFC 187. My number 3 nominee, the title fight, Robbie Lawler versus Rory MacDonald at UFC 189. Fantastic matchup that went back and forth. They are nominee number 3. My number 4 nominee, a fight we just saw, Tony Ferguson versus Edson Barboza at the Ultimate Fighter 22 finale. Great matchup. Just edge-of-your-seat competition. So much looking forward to rewatching that fight again. And my 5th nominee, Daniel Cormier, defeating Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 192 to retain his newly won light heavyweight title. Now, these are some fantastic fights, and if you put these 5 fights on a main card and they all turned out like this, it would just blow people's minds. My runner-up, all of them are great fights. Ferguson versus Barboza is my runner-up, possibly because it's the most fresh matchup of the 5 in my mind, but it was an awesome fight, and I was just so impressed with what Ferguson fought, especially with the urgency after losing a point. He came out, he knew he had to finish to really make it, avoid any issues, and I was impressed with that. But my Fight of the Year, and he's done it again, Robbie, the ruthless one, Robbie Lawler, back-to-back Fight of the Year award winners, this time sharing the honor with Rory MacDonald, who was my Contender of the Year last year, and Robbie, of course, my Fighter of the Year as well. Lawler cleans up again. That UFC 189 was an absolute war. And it's Fight of the Year for a number of reasons. Obviously, the welterweight title was up for grabs. It was so impressive. The back and forth, it was very close early on, both guys having their moments. And then it looked like Robbie was going to, had Rory hurt and in trouble. And then the 4th round, boom. I think it was the 3rd round. I can't remember exactly. I have to go back and watch it. But then Rory mounts a furious comeback and almost stops Robbie. It appeared the bell might have saved him. And then we go into the 5th round, and they're going at it again. And this time, Robbie comes back and stops Rory in the 5th round, which was so impressive. And the reason it was impressive is it was announced afterwards, or released, that had they gone to the scorecards, the judges had Rory MacDonald win the title. So not only did Robbie knock him out, he saved his title, kept it around his waist by defeating him. So that is why Robbie Lawler versus Rory MacDonald at UFC 189 is my 2015 Fight of the Year award winner. And with Robbie Lawler fighting Carlos Condit up next, he has a chance to potentially three-peat as a member of the Fight of the Year award winner. I'm sure he is excited wherever he is. Congratulations, Robbie. And now the moment we have all been waiting for. And I am so tired of listening to my own voice. Nonetheless, we are here. Fighter of the Year. And I do 8 nominees for this one. Fighter of the Year, pretty damn self-explanatory. Last year's winner, the aforementioned Robbie Lawler, had a great year. Beat some impressive competition, won a title. Here are my 8 nominees for Fighter of the Year. Conor McGregor, 3-0, defeating Dennis Siver, Chad Mendes, and then winning the featherweight title against Jose Aldo. Number 2 nominee, Luke Rockhold, 2-0, defeating Lyoto Machida and Chris Weidman to win the middleweight title. Number 3 Fighter of the Year, Daniel Cormier, went 2-1, lost to Jones, Johnson, and Gustafsson victories, light heavyweight title for him. Number 4 Fighter of the Year, Tony Ferguson, 3-0, Gleison Tebow, Josh Thompson, Edson Barboza victories, putting himself in line for a shot at the title in the not-too-distant future. Number 5, Holly Holm, also impressive. We know what she did. 3-0, Pennington, Renault, Rousey, all very solid victories leading to the bantamweight title. Number 6, Donald Cerrone, went 3-1, coming off a heartbreaking loss, which really, too bad for, it really takes him out of the running to win this because of the way his year ended. But nonetheless, beating Jury, Henderson, and McDessie, still a solid year for Donald Cerrone nonetheless. Number 7, Rafael dos Anjos, the man that beat Donald Cerrone. Only fought twice, but still his wins over Anthony Pettis and Cerrone to capture the lightweight title against Pettis. Super impressive. And my 8th nominee for Fighter of the Year, the Joanna Jedrzejczyk, who won Champion of the Year. She went 3-0, defeating Carla Esparza, Jessica Penne, and of course Valeri Letourneau and winning the strawweight title against Esparza. All very impressive. And I actually have a tie for my runner-up. Both ladies, Joanna Jedrzejczyk and Holly Holm, are my runners-up for Fighter of the Year. Basically, they kind of did it in reverse. Jedrzejczyk wins the title, 2 impressive title defenses. Holly Holm, 2 solid victories, and then dominates Ronda Rousey and wins the title. But my Fighter of the Year, and again, most people probably already anticipate this, it is... Sorry for the quick interruption. My Fighter of the Year award winner, without much surprise, is the notorious one, Conor McGregor. Talked a lot of shit. Backed it up, though. He defeated Dennis Siver in impressive fashion. Took out Chad Mendes in one of those fights where a lot of doubters were still like, hey, but look, Mendes, short notice, possible injury, gassed out. Yeah, all true. A lot of that all true. Conor McGregor still won the fight. But then the manner in which he destroyed Jose Aldo and people's jaws hit the floor was just like, wow, good for him. And now he's got himself the featherweight crown and is potentially going to contend in 2 divisions, and really, with Ronda Rousey going down, is the UFC's alpha star, if you will. And Conor McGregor, you are my Fighter of the Year award winner. So that's that just caps off a great 2015 for the Notorious One, winning this award. I'm sure he'll put it on the mantle above. And he's still not here yet? Did you check in the back? Okay, that's no problem. I'm sure he was busy. So that's my Fighter of the Year award winner. So those are all my award winners and prognostications for each division. I'll cap this show off, as it's probably running very long, with just a number of random MMA-related predictions. And I know a lot of people are saying, why didn't you talk about other MMA organizations? Because I didn't. I do follow other organizations like Bellator, World Series of Fighting, ONE, FC. I pay as much attention as I possibly can. But my sole focus is on the UFC, and that's just all I have time for. Now, here are a list of other prognostications that I'm looking for. I think there could be some reform to the Reebok deal in 2016. More colors in the cage by them allowing potentially fighters to reflect the countries they represent by being a little bit more flashy with their fight kits. God, I'm so sick of hearing that. They're hoping that could lead to increased sales, change the look in the cage, and just be a positive development. I think end of 2016 could be the beginning of the end for Reebok. I think we could see them and UFC mutually part ways. That's probably wishful thinking on my part. I'd love to see it revert back to fighters wearing what they want, getting sponsors by who they want it. Who they want to represent. And I'm hoping by the end of 2016 that could be the case. And, it could. You never know. George St. Pierre, I think he'll remain out of action for 2016. And I think this theory actually could announce that he will not be returning to MMA. He's clearly had some issues with the UFC. And I don't know, maybe he's playing shadow games with them and trying to get them to say, okay, we want you to come back, and beg him to come back. Nonetheless, I think if he doesn't come back this year, I think he'll formally announce his retirement. For Bellator, I predicted last year that Bellator would pull in a couple of disgruntled fighters from the UFC who, when their contracts were up, Phil Davis and Josh Thompson fit that nicely. I think we'll see them pull in 2 to 3 more noteworthy fighters via free agency. Possibly Aljamain Sterling, who knows he can go in, potentially compete for a title, win a title in that division. It's got some pretty good fighters there, and that would be big for his career. But I think Bellator makes another step in the direction of taking some talent away from the UFC. And I think as a result, we might see, again, this could be wishful thinking, we could see the UFC make some attempts to improve the income of their fighters to avoid losing them to other organizations. We just saw the whole Sage Northcutt issue where he got paid 40 to show and 40 to fight and 40 to win, and people were outraged by that because, you know, who he is and how little time he spent in the UFC. But I think we could see the promotion opt to try and entice fighters to stay by just giving, you know, increasing their base salary. Again, could be wishful thinking. World Series of Fighting, I predicted last year they would close their doors. They did not. I think this year they possibly could. You never know. It seems like their roster is expanding and contracting all the time, going both directions. I've been impressed with the fights they put on. They very well could still be going strong. But I think if they do close their doors, it'll be because Bellator, Viacom stepped in and bought them out in an attempt to add their talent to their roster and to further try and compete with the UFC. Fedor Emelianenko, he's coming up with this fighting for this Ryzen promotion in New Year's Day. I think he'll fight at that event. I think he'll have one more showing with that company. I think that promotion will just fade away and just kind of disappear. And I think what we're likely going to see is that there could be another dance between Fedor Emelianenko and the UFC occur in late 2016. Mostly, no resolution will come to it, mostly unfounded rumors. And if anything, I think he'll fight for Bellator's heavyweight title at some point against somebody like Bobby Lashley or Chet Congo, and whether he wins or loses, I think that will be his biggest action in 2016. For Ronda Rousey, I think she calls it a career. I think she fights Holly Holm again, loses, and decides that, oh no, I'm done, this is not for me. I think she goes to the movie world, and getting obliterated twice will really dampen her image, and I think she finds out it's not nearly as lucrative when you're not the champion and not on top, and I think at some point, maybe it takes into 2017, the UFC draws her back in for some other big money fights. Here's another possibility. I think the UFC will look to add 2 more women's divisions, the 125-pound division and the 145-pound division. And I think the reason they open up the 145-pound division is it gives an opportunity for a less trained Ronda to go up to that division and compete and win the title. Obviously, they'll compete to keep somebody like Holly Holm at 135 pounds. But the big thing is they won't sign Cyborg Santos. They'll cite some of her, Cyborg just, they'll cite some of her past issues with steroids, unfairly looking at that versus other fighters like Vitor Belfort who have had issues. But they'll build a 145-pound division, bring in somebody like Marloes Kunin and a couple other reputable 145-pounders, and allow that to be Ronda Rousey's new home. But they'll also bring in the 125-pound division as well at the same time to kind of, make it seem like we're not just making this division for Ronda. And that'll allow somebody like Miesha Tate to cut down to 125 pounds if she's capable to fight for the title there. Jessica Ai will also go down. They'll kind of be the centerpieces to that division. If that does happen, the UFC probably steps in, buys out the Invicta fighters, picks up as much talent as they possibly can, maybe even creates a tournament for the 125-pounders to put the to crown a new champion. Either way, I think that's the UFC's big divisional moves. Also, I think Sage Northcutt will lose at some point in 2016. It'll be one of those situations where he continues to have success, gets put in a fight where it's too much too soon, puts up a valiant effort, but eventually gets defeated, and he's forced to rebuild himself, or potentially fades away. But either way, I think this is the year 2016. Sage Northcutt, as impressive as he has been, he gets his over his head, and that could be his next matchup. You never know. Holbrook is not is nobody to trifle with. We've seen him; he's put up a pretty good effort fighting against Ramsey Nijem. So those are my predictions for 2016. If you ended up listening to the entire show, thank you as always for tuning in. I greatly appreciate all of my people who patronize my website and buy the bet packs, watch my predictions, send me emails, comment on Twitter. Yeah, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We're expanding there with social media. I don't know why I didn't do that before. I also have some pretty cool things. Just on a side note, Joseph Kohout, again, I probably mispronouncing your last name, as I talked about several times, won the Frank Mir experience through DraftKings. He got to go to UFC on Fox and sit in the front row. You actually got a screen capture. You can see him wearing my Kamikaze Overdrive hat when Donald Cerrone comes out. I'm hoping to post those images later. He took a picture. They took a picture of him standing next to Frank Mir with my hat on, which is so cool. And also, I sound like a fanboy, which I am. I'm a huge fan of fighting besides just doing this for something to do. Also, he didn't have it on in the hat, but he got a picture taken while my hat was being held inside the octagon. So cool. So considering I did this from scratch in my basement one day because I went, oh, look, my computer has a webcam, I should talk about fights in front of it and then post it on YouTube and get 12 views. I think I've come a long way. So thank you as always. And remember, we're going for 300 wins this year in 2016. We'll have to see if that transpires. That's enough talking for me. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And I will see you in 2016. The best to you.